Hello everyone, this is Erik, the Asian movie enthusiast, and this is my review of Stare, also known as Shirai-san, a Japanese horror film from 2019. The following plot synopsis was pretty good, so I'm quoting it from the Movies and Mania website. The dead are accumulating at a rate that's alarming, and the state in which the victims are discovered is even more so. They've all died of a heart attack, visibly provoked by extreme fear, and their eyes have literally exploded. Mizuki witnessed the death of her friend, and Haruo lost his brother in nebulous circumstances. The two students seek to understand the cause of this slaughter, and their investigation leads them to the name Shirai-san. This troubling story draws the attention of Mamiya, a journalist who decides to join Mizuki and Haruo in unraveling Shirai-san's curse. Now, I've only seen this film without subtitles. I've covered it at least 2 times already the past few weeks in my collection playlist and a few other videos I've made. But I have read some information online, and the gist is that this entity will kill you if you merely know of her existence and her name. So those are the only qualifications that put you in danger here. All right, you don't need to go into a house. You don't need to watch a videotape. That's all it is, folks. All right. So it's pretty dangerous stuff. Very dangerous curse. This taps into a variety of fears. Outside of the typical fear of mortality, the method of transmission here seems to, in my opinion, explore a little bit the fear of curiosity or the dangers of curiosity. Have you ever heard the saying, curiosity killed the cat? Well, that expression implies that being curious can sometimes lead to danger or misfortune, and I thought about that while watching Stare, because even the slightest amount of investigation into this entity will lead to death. So theoretically, if this were true, me and all of you would be dead very soon. All right. So I do like the folklore that's explored in this. There's a legend about a strange woman, possibly a shaman, who would tell people her name and then vow revenge against them because they know her name. So it's the concept itself is kind of psychotic. Now, sometimes when I review a horror film, I need to explain why I enjoy the film despite the fact that it's not scary. I like all kinds of horror films, and that includes, classics, art house films, cheesy films as well. And in many cases, I like horror films for their entertainment value, regardless of whether or not they actually are scary. This movie is kind of the opposite. The horror sequences in this are the actual highlights of the film. It's very effectively shot, a great sense of gloomy music. It crescendos at the appropriate times. I think the filmmakers were inspired by Kiyoshi Kurosawa's Pulse a little bit. There are a few little moments where I kind of felt the influence. That's a good thing. There are no cheap scares in the film, so that's good. There are a few highlights for you. I won't spoil it too much, but there's an effectively creepy scene that takes place in a hospital. That's like one of the highlights of the film. There's a creepy scene that takes place on a desolate road at night with a woman whose hands are like tied together with a rope. And there are multiple ghost appearances that use almost no sound at all. Like all you hear is a little ringing bell in the background. It's pretty creepy. The ghost, the facial design of this ghost is freaky. I'm not going to tell you what it's like, but the makeup effects, really cool in this. All right, this is one of those villains that's kind of memorable, even though the entity has certain similarities to other Japanese villains in these supernatural films. The design is really cool. I really liked it, and the entity shows up a lot in the film, or a good amount. Now, there is a very brief bit of CGI that's used for one of the eyeball explosions. Like one person who actually see their eyeballs explode, they should have used practical effects. Maybe cut to a shot behind the person's head and have the blood come out would have been better. That's like the only shot of the film that I thought was a little dodgy, but it's kind of a minor gripe because it only happens once. Casting, slightly frustrating, because we have Shota Somatani, who's been in a lot of stuff, Sawa Nimura, my favorite actress from Hellgirl, really talented young actress, and Mitsuki Tanimura are all in supporting roles. And these three actors should have been the leads, in my opinion. Maybe because I'm just fans of all of them. The actual leads were pretty good, but I consider them to just be like adequate in the lead roles. If you had these other three actors in the lead roles, I think it would have been an even better film. One other minor criticism I have is that the ending, the very end, does not crescendo to a huge climax. It doesn't. There's no huge finale to the film. Now, there are some good horror sequences near the end, and even a few creepy moments at the end, but it does not crescendo to a finale. So, I think like the 2 or 3 best horror sequences are peppered in the middle of the film. Does help pacing a lot, that's for sure, but some viewers may feel slightly unsatisfied with the finale by itself. The film is deliberately paced, but very satisfying. Solid production values as well. I very much enjoyed this. I did, despite some of the flaws that it has. I see myself rewatching this one actually fairly regularly, primarily for like the horror sequences themselves and the overall feel of the film. If you're a fan of like contemporary Japanese ghost films, this is kind of right up your alley. Currently, it's only available on unsubtitled physical media from Japan, as I've mentioned a few times in the past few weeks. Hopefully it gets an English-friendly release in the near future. So keep it on your radar. You should know if you're the type of person that might like this. If you don't like supernatural, like ghost flicks from Japan, this probably won't change your mind. But I think it has a good quality to it, and it's even kind of memorable in some aspects. And remember, don't confuse this film with a different Japanese horror film called The Stare from 2016. The Japanese title for that one is Nozokime. So you want Shirai-san, not Nozokime. All right? Although that movie I'm going to be covering in my Asian horror playlist. That movie's actually pretty good in its own right. Not quite as good as this one, though. So, yes. And as always, I will see you next time.